Hey everybody, Al Iverson here. It's time for another one of your email authentication and deliverability questions answered. Today's question, what is PCI compliance and where does it intersect with DMARC? Today I'm joined by Valimail's Chief Operating Officer, Kevin Dunne, and we're going to talk about PCI compliance and how DMARC fits into the upcoming version of the PCI data security standard. Hey Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing great today, Al. How are you doing?
Doing well. So let's talk about PCI compliance. And I think a good way to kick that off is with what is PCI compliance or even what is PCI? And PCI refers to the payment card industry. PCI compliance or PCI DSS compliance refers to agreeing to abide by industry agreed standards with regard to handling credit card and other payment information and data. It's governed by the Payment Card Industry Security Standards Council. It's not a government entity, but it might as well be because any company, almost any company doing back-end handling of credit cards must comply with the PCI DSS standard, or credit card companies won't work with them. And the credit card companies can levy fines too. So there's a graduated set of enforcement steps that you do not want to be on the wrong end of. So how does compliance with it specifically work? As I said, it's not a legal requirement, but companies dealing with credit card data effectively have to comply with these requirements, or credit card companies will cut them off. And this is all about back ends, not front ends. A small retailer might comply by outsourcing credit card handling to a provider. For example, my wife owns a small bookstore. She uses tools for her physical credit card handling like Square and Stripe, and an online bookseller affiliate agreement for online sales. She never personally stores credit card information herself. Stripe, Square, and the bookseller, the online bookseller, are the ones who comply with the PCI DSS in this instance. And how is that validated? Kevin, I'll touch a little bit more on that in a bit. But it boils down to this: there's a process where somebody looking to be PCI compliant gets reviewed by a qualified security assessor, a QSA, one that's approved by the PCI Security Standards Council. They validate that the company looking to be PCI compliant is passing all the different checks and requirements that are explained in the PCI DSS specification document. They conduct an audit and assessment to do that. And so essentially, it's up to a QSA, one of those QSAs, to officially validate a company's PCI compliance.
Now, Al, I'd like to point out that there are a few differences in terms of whether or not a QSA is required to come on site, depending on what the company's size may be. In some of my research, I saw that typically around 6 million transactions a year was where companies were required to have an on-site audit by a QSA occur. But as you get into the smaller companies below 6 million and especially below 1 million transactions a year, many times they'd actually be doing a sort of self-assessment questionnaire where they would fill out the answers to some questions around the PCI audit themselves rather than bringing in an outside auditor. However, we did find that for a number of those SAQs, this requirement, the requirement 5.4.1, that requires a protection against email phishing attacks against personnel, was still included for the type C and types D. So regardless of company size, there is potential that you may be impacted and may need to have a solution around this requirement to achieve your PCI compliance. So it's definitely something that should still be on the radar of companies of all sizes.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit more about that. Where exactly in the PCI spec does it touch on either DMARC or phishing, spoofing, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so in the letter of the law, or the compliance regulation itself, there's a requirement 5.4.1, and that specifically states that processes and automated mechanisms are in place to detect and protect personnel against phishing attacks. So that is very broad, but that is essentially what the entities that are being audited are going to be held to. And I think they give some direction to the QSA in the case that you have an auditor come in and audit you. The specific thing that they tell that auditor to look for is to observe implemented processes and examine mechanisms to verify controls are in place to detect and protect personnel against phishing attacks. So it's quite broad. I think, there's a lot of different ways that you could solve this. There are obviously logs that you could get from a secure email gateway. There are email filters you could set up. You could have approved lists of certain domains that are allowed to send to your employees. There's a lot of different ways you could go about it. But I think, as you and I know, working in DMARC every day, DMARC not only provides a lot of the protection that these companies would be looking for against these types of phishing attacks when properly implemented, and also provides a lot of visibility or proof that those protections are working, or that invalid emails that are part of a phishing attack potentially are getting blocked.
Right, and that's the core of DMARC, right? At its very center, the point is to be able to monitor and protect, right? To show what mail is out there using my domain so that I can identify the potential for illegitimate mail, see when it's happening, and also to lock down domains by moving to an enforcement posture and being able to basically tell the world that if mail purports to be from me but doesn't pass authentication checks, don't let that mail in through the door. So I totally agree there. I think though, we're walking a bit of a fine line. We're trying not to fearmonger, but it's clear in our experience that when you want to protect domains against phishing and spoofing, DMARC is the way that you do that.
Exactly. And I think there are a lot of ways potentially that you could protect your own employees through some of the methods that I mentioned, where you might, filter your own inbound emails, or, put in place some sort of allow list or block list of what domains can send to you, or what even email addresses can send to you. But I think that some of the guess I would have, or prediction I would have, is that as we look ahead to PCI, 5.0, 6.0, I would imagine that this standard is going to be raised, and that there will be some emphasis in the future on making sure that customers are also protected from receiving those kind of spoofed emails on domains that you own. And that's where or impersonating brands that you own, right? So that's where I think that DMARC is sort of a future-proof standard, and that it can not only protect your own employees by the letter of the law in terms of PCI 4.0, but it also has that added benefit of it protects your customers. And I think if you're dealing in these transactions and, receiving money, paying money, right, you want to make sure that while the compliance is maybe only stating right now protecting your own personnel, I think, in the future it definitely could and should be about protecting your customers as well from these kind of attacks, since they're equally susceptible to that. So.
Excellent. Thanks, Kevin. I think this is a great overview. Now, to recap here, PCI 4.0 compliance is coming. The requirements there are for March 2025, I believe. So if you want to get ahead of this now and implement DMARC so that you're sort of future-proof and complying with what gets referenced in the PCI specification, specifically if you want to protect domains against phishing and spoofing with a DMARC posture, the best way to do that is to implement DMARC with P equals reject or P equals quarantine as your policy by March 2025. And keep in mind, too, that PCI compliance goes beyond just finance. If you are handling and storing credit card data, you have to be PCI compliant. You don't want to get in trouble with the credit card processors. And if you are any sort of business that's dealing with cardholder data, we believe that DMARC is a valuable tool to protect your personnel from phishing attacks and prove the efficacy of your email security controls. And if you want to learn more about PCI compliance, I'll include links to all of these in the description below or comment below, where you can go right to the source of truth, the one source of truth there, and look up the standard for yourself and learn more about how this stuff all works. Thank you, Kevin, for your help today. And thank you, everybody, for watching. I appreciate you. If you have any ideas for follow-up questions that might make for a good video, please drop me an email at al.iverson@valimail.com. And don't forget to visit our website at valimail.com. If you are ready to get started on your DMARC journey, we are here and waiting and ready to help you. Thanks, and I'll catch you in the next one.